guys, so today I'm here to do a really exciting video, and that is to review House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J Maas, or Crescent City as most of us have been calling it until we realized that the first book actually was not called that. But I'm so keen to film this. I knew about halfway through reading this book that I needed to talk about it in a video. I enjoyed this so much, and it is just so exciting to have a new series from her and new characters to fall in love with. And honestly, it's like on par with her other series to me because I just enjoyed it so much, and I'm so excited to film this book review. And this video is going to be really long because this book is 800 pages and there is a lot to talk about in the content of this book, and I am just excited. And spoiler warning for sure, guys, because I'm gonna delve right into what happens in this, and I'm just so keen. So I definitely do think it's so crazy starting a new series from Sarah J Maas though, because like with Throne of Glass and Akatar, they have been around for years now, and there are so many memes and the fan culture is so real and strong that having this new series that is so fresh and we don't have much content out there for it at the moment is so weird. And I'm just gonna be patiently waiting for all the fandoms to start blowing up with it, because I am excited and I am hoping that we have more people liking it than disliking it, because for some reason now Sarah J Maas is a hated author, which like I can see parts of that, but I'm also like, she writes such amazing books, why hate on her? Because she is great. So I am definitely on team Sarah J Maas, and I was so keen for this book. I was very excited for it to come out. It's just weird to have fresh content. So this book is about Bryce Quinlan, and she has just been living her best life, and she has been partying and drinking and just having fun in her 20s, and just, you know, generally having the time of her life, until one night a demon kills all of her friends, and it is horrible. And then we come 2 years later in the story where the supposed killer is behind bars, but then the murders start happening again. So Bryce is commanded by the government to look into the murders and try and figure out what's actually happened. And to help her with the case, we also have Hunt, who I cannot seem to pronounce his last name. It's Atala, I think, but he is an enslaved fallen angel and he has to help her out with the case. And basically they need to figure it out quickly so they can make whoever did the murders pay, because that is the main basis of most books. Just saying, what I do really want to quickly say before I get into like my thoughts and feelings on the characters and such is this world was really cool. And like, yes, we have so many creatures and stuff that we've seen from previous series because there's fae and witches and all that other crap going on, but it's really cool because this is a fantasy world that has evolved into a modern world. So it's not our world, but they have mobile phones and computers and reality TV show trash and just all the same things that we have. So like, I relate to it, but also then you see a werewolf running down the street with someone's leg hanging from their mouth and you're like, okay, this is totally not something I could relate to, but it also is. And like, I just like that juxtaposition of it, because it was so weird to also have such like historical moments in their world that would have just been like normal for any other of her series. It was a really fun take on it, and I do remember her talking about this when I saw her live in April, and it was one of the main reasons I was really excited about this book. I wanted to see characters written by Sarah J Maas using phones, and it was amazing. So I absolutely loved Bryce, and I do feel that she is a type of character that we don't see very often. Like from the start of the book, she is confident in who she is and she knows her worth, and most book characters have to do the thing like, oh my god, I'm so ugly and I can never do anything, and then they evolve and become like the best people ever. But Bryce is already there. Like, she is already boss, and she is like hilarious. I loved her humor, and like her deflection when stuff gets serious was also really funny. And you know, she just walks around in tight dresses and high heels all the time fighting demons, and I'm like, yes girl, you are my queen. And she honestly goes through so much in her life, and honestly seeing her best friends die was devastating for her, but she still came through it strong. And even at the start of the book, I still felt like she was so full of life, and even though some of the characters did say that she's kind of stopped living, I saw that, but I also did feel that spark of just her inner being and just how she is as a person, and she was just really great. And I also loved Hunt, but how could you not? He's just like every other Sarah J Maas character, and I appreciated him so much. He has been enslaved for over 200 years of his life, and he's another like 240 or something, so he didn't live much of his life before he was in chains and enslaved and all that crap. But what happened 200 years ago is he took part in a human rebellion against the angels and the man and the government and all that stuff, and they lost. So all the angels that were a part of the big battle at the end of this rebellion were enslaved, and in the 200 years after, he's been forced to do many horrible things that he doesn't want to do, but he has no choice because he has a slave tattoo on his wrist and he has this band around his head that stops a lot of his power coming through, so he has his hands tied and there's not much he can really do. And also people are very scared of him because he is known as the Umbra Mortis, and he is Micah's assassin, who was an archangel and in charge of Crescent City, and you know, he just doesn't have a great life going on. But the best thing about Hunt is he honestly did break the dominating male mold that most characters fall into, and not just Sarah J Maas, but we do get some of those male characters, and this can happen in contemporary romances as well, where they are just douchebags and they think it's okay to be like that, and you're like, no, it's not okay to be like that. And like, he's meant to be this hella scary dude who kills people and ruins everything, and he is, but he also is this adorable goofball all the time, and he also feels so normal for what he's been through. Like, he likes to watch reality TV show, and he likes to cook, and he has a baseball hat that he wears backwards that I'm just like, where did this even come from? Like, a baseball hat in this fantasy world, I'm just like, okay, things are weird and I love it. And like, he honestly is very sweet and funny, but honestly he will fuck you up if you hurt someone he loves, and I love that about him. Something that I know a lot of people are going to mention about this book is it is long. It is 800 pages of a long ass story, and it only took me a week to read it because I got so invested by the second half of this book. Like, the first half was still great, but I wasn't reading it as quickly, but then it got near the end and I'm like like, I had to know what was gonna happen. Like, I read 400 pages in 2 days, which I was like, how the hell did I do that? It was very daunting, and I honestly feel like this could have sat on my shelves a lot longer if it wasn't Sarah J Maas, because it's only Sarah J Maas or Cassandra Clare that I will read their 800 page books, because I know the books are going to be good, I know the story is going to be good, and they all follow a wider range of storytelling going on, so it's fine. And I am going to say, I'm not actually mad at the length or the pace that this story took, because so many people are saying, oh, it could have been like 400 pages if you got rid of all the boring stuff, but really it wasn't actually boring. It actually made a lot of sense, and for the way that the case evolved over the course of the book, we needed this time finding out these riddles and going one step forward, one step back. And if the story was rushed, it would have really ruined key character relationships as they evolved over the book, and either they got better or worse. And I do not think the ending would have been good at all if we didn't have this time in the journey to really get invested in it. My only gripe with this book is there was just way too many places and people and characters and species and names and titles and shit going on, and like, I had no idea what was going on for the first 100 pages of this book. And like, you know how you're in that state of confusion before the book suddenly starts to make sense, and then you start to understand who everyone is? So by the end of it, I knew exactly what was going on, I knew what the principles were, I knew who the key characters were, I understood why the world was the way it was. But the info dump at the start was killing me. Like, there was too much going on. Like, she made this too difficult. And when I write my notes down, I like to write the key characters down, and literally that is how many main key characters there are in this book. Most of my reviews, I do like this many. So there is a lot of people in this that are important. There's just too many of them. And like, the plot for this book was just amazing. I think it was done so well, and honestly, where we started to where we ended was so different, but Sarah J Maas does that so well. I mean, the whole Throne of Glass series put us in a loop, man, because where that started to where that ended, that was like, what the hell? But this book did the same thing, and we had 800 pages to be with his characters, and I just enjoyed it profusely. And also, Bryce and Danica's relationship was so good, and I loved their friendship so much. And like, even though she died, their friendship was the key plot point of this series, and it was crazy to learn things about her that might have been bad, might have been good, and it was really hard for Bryce because she couldn't ask her to know what her friend had done. And like, she was honestly one of the most important characters to Bryce's storyline, and just the whole time I really enjoyed every little snippet we got from her. And also, having lighted up and through love all is possible, they were such important messages, and at first we're thinking, oh yeah, that's cool friendship stuff, but by the end of the book you're like, holy shit, these are so important and fundamental to their relationship, and it was beautiful. So when Danica and her pack were murdered, they were literally ripped apart, and it was horrible because we got to meet them at the start, and we got to have a little bit of stuff about Connor, a little bit of stuff about Danica, we got to see how solid their friendship is, and then when Bryce went out drinking and had a few drugs and came home and just found her whole house trashed and bits of body everywhere, she just became kind of a different person, which is totally understandable because some of the most important people to her had died. She didn't see the murder, but she saw the aftermath, which is just as bad. And the assumption was that it was a demon attack orchestrated by Philip Riggs. So he was part of a new human rebellion, and he had plans to kill a lot of people, so they stopped him, but then when he was released and then Danica died, they all assumed it was him, but then the murders started again, and then it was like, okay, he didn't do it. And that was really hard for Bryce because she assumed that for so long. To know now that the murderer was still out there, that was really upsetting for her as well, and then she had to go into the case, and it was just even more going on. But so after researching it a bit, they found out that the demon was called the Crystalios, and they started to look for it, and it kept kind of popping up in different situations, and it was like, oh god, what's going on here? And then the legendary Fey horn that was stolen 2 years ago has come into play, and everyone wants to find that, and it has the power to open up gates to hell to bring demons across. So again, that was something that I'm like, that's probably bound to happen at some point in the story. But the issue with the horn is it's broken, so its power doesn't work, and the only way to fix it is by using synthetic magic. So then the drug synth was introduced, so now we have a drug going on, which is totally unexpected to me. So it gives people heightened abilities to what they already have. So for about an hour they have just like really crazy strength. But if you take too much of it, you start to rip people apart, and then you rip yourself apart and then you die. And honestly, I was beyond shocked where this book was going, because I thought we were just looking for this one demon, and then next minute you find out that Danica's the one that killed them all because she had the drug in her system, and then she killed her whole pack, and then she killed herself. And I was sitting there because I realized about 2 pages before Bryce did, and I'm sitting there like, oh no, oh no, this is not good. This is not good. And like, we also find out that Danica took the horn, and then she worked for the company that developed the drug, and then we're sitting here like, was she the person that we thought she was? Like, is she actually a bad person? Then we find out that Hunt is kind of a bad guy because he was trying to do a deal to get some of the drug, and he wanted to use it to start a new rebellion against all the angels and all the people in power. And then it was like, oh my god, I was so crushed because I thought he was doing a Kale. I thought that was what was happening, and I'm sitting here like, no, you already ruined Selena and Kale for me. You are not ruining Bryce and Hunt. And I was very concerned. And I was thinking he had to be involved in everything if he was doing the drug and you already knew about it. But like, I was so glad that it was just him making kind of a mistake. But once he realized how bad it actually was, he tried to stop the deal, but then his fellow angels died, and then he had some shit happen to him too that was really horrible. But he just made a mistake, and like, we can forgive each other. There is nothing wrong with that. So like, the last 100 pages of this book were seriously so wild. Like, I was just shocked by everything that kept happening. Like, there's some things that I picked up, but some things that I didn't, that I was sitting there like, holy shit. But like, at the end, when we find out it was actually Micah, who was the archangel, was the one behind all of this, and he actually is the one that killed Danica and her pack, and he is the one that orchestrated everything, and he only made them do the case so he could be like in the loop of what they happened, because he wanted to find the horn. And then when he found out that the horn is actually Bryce, because she got it tattooed on her back with Danica before she died, and she didn't realize, but the horn was grinded up into a powder and put on her back. And like, when we found out that, I was like, holy shit, because we've been looking for the horn the whole time, and then it was Bryce, and then he used his powers on the horn to open it up, and then she like bloody killed Micah, and it was like, holy shit, power move right there. And then Bryce is running around, and she was like so kick-ass in that last bit where she's running around with swords and guns and knives and just slashing all these people, and it was just like, holy shit, like, it got so intense, and I was so living for it. And then she got to one of the gates, and we find out that she actually has starbomb powers. So I'm like, oh, this is ironic that she sits there being like, oh, I'm only a half fae bastard the whole book, and like, I have no powers and nothing really interesting about me, when she's been the chosen one basically the whole time, because her brother has the power too, but he only has a little bit of it, but she had like a shit ton of it. And that was a bit annoying, because I'm like, okay, now you're awesome because you have this starborn power and the horn, and you can fix everything. But she was only able to do one gate, and then it was like crazy because then she made the drop, which is a thing that all species do where they want to become immortal, is they have to do this drop into their power, and they have to get back up, and they normally have an anchor. So Danica anchors her, even though it's never been done before that a dead person can do it, because they're not alive to actually be a full-on anchor. And she goes right down in power, and she even goes further than her father, the Order King, which I was like, yes bitch, take that. Then she bounces back, and then she shuts all the gates and heals the whole city, and then it's all good, it's all fine. She saved the day. And I was so happy though, because like, again, that was such an intense scene and moment, and I was like, holy shit, like, it just escalated so quickly. And I definitely don't think without all the development we had at the start of the book, it wouldn't have been as good. And like, now that I've come to the end of the book though, I'm not really sure where else it's gonna go, because that was a pretty big moment of time, and I don't know what other battle they're gonna have to go through. Like, obviously it's gonna have something to do with Adis, is how I think you say his name. I always read it as Adidas, and I'm like, that's not right. Like, we had the epilogue scene where they're like, oh, they don't know what's to come, but I'm like, how's there gonna be more in this story? Like, what more is gonna happen? And there was a lot of loose ends here, because there are so many characters that I need to have interactions again now that they've gotten over the battle, and some things that never got answered that I want dealt with. But honestly, I just don't know what's going to be the next big move. And I do feel like there's going to be 4 books in this series, so one book titled after each house in the worlds, and there's 4 houses, so that's where I feel like it's going to go. But I'm also like, how can they do 4 books unless we have like companion novels about other characters? But again, I don't really know, and I don't feel like we're going to get a second book for a while, because the Nessian book is coming out next. But yeah, like, I don't know where it's gonna go. And now I need to talk about Bryce and Hunt's relationship because it was amazing. It started out with them having to work together and they were like slightly hating on each other. Like, it wasn't full out hatred, but the banter that they had at the start where they were just like being shit to each other was amazing. And again, it's hate to love, which I do really appreciate. And like, I do love it so much that, you know, it didn't take long before they started to really like get on with each other and they became friends first. Like, they were friends for a good majority of this book. Like, they didn't kiss until nearly page 600, so there was a lot of healing and growth to help each other, which is really, really nice to see, because Bryce has been through a lot, Hunt has been through a lot, and they're just there for each other, and it was amazing. And like, also, this was Sarah's first adult novel, which was really awesome to see. And yes, we had a lot more swearing and the characters were quite a lot older than in her previous books, but where was the smut? Like, I feel robbed of scenes that I wish were in this book. Like, we got absolutely no sex between Bryce and Hunt, and we only had one scene that I would count as foreplay, okay? Because nothing fully happened there and they were interrupted and they keep getting interrupted. And like, why was it so tame? Like, I don't understand. And I saw other people reviewing it being like, oh, the smut and the sex in this book was so cringy and I just wish that wasn't in the book. And I was like, yes, I'm ready. There was nothing. Like, I shouldn't be angry about this because it's such a small detail, but where was the sex? Like, this book can't be a standalone because we need the sex scenes. And honestly, I am so scared that they aren't going to be endgame, because every other series she has fucked us over by choosing a different love interest than the original one we are introduced to. And I'm going to say right now, I feel like Bryce and Hunt are on the level of like Feyre and Rhysand, or Aelin and Rowan. Like, they are on that level. And I honestly think it's going to kill me if she fucks with this couple, because I don't think I can deal. I barely lived through Selena and Kale, so I don't want to be hurt again, because if you keep doing this through all your series, we just aren't gonna like anyone until the last page before we realize who it's gonna be. But I just can't deal. If it's gonna be ruined, I just can't deal. I literally wrote so many notes then, but then I just started to do dot points because my hand hurt for just some other things just to mention. When Hunt's wings were cut off, I was like nearly crying. I was so upset about it, and honestly, the fact that he just let it happen because he wanted to go defend Bryce because the wolves were being assholes to her, and Bryce's reaction and just like them trying to heal it and how bad it was, and like, he isn't the same without his wings, and at least they grew back, which is pretty cool. Like, I mean, he can grow other parts of him back too, but still, it hurt me. It like physically hurt me when that happened. And then when Bryce was trying to buy back Hunt's freedom from Sandriel when he was bought from her, it was awful because she had like all this money to do it, and she's like, nah, and then she's like, buy me, and then Rune fucked it up, and I'm like, mate, we need to save Hunt. Like, that was great. And then at the end when he's like, bitch, I never loved you, can you just leave me alone? And I'm like, do not Edward Cullen her, mate. She is not Bella Swan. She's gonna sit there and be like, you're a dumbass, of course you love me, and we'll take no for an answer and save you anyway. I actually am concerned that I did not mention Lahabia until right now. Like, I mentioned her in my 7 on Sunday video to be quarantined with, and then I didn't mention my beautiful fire spirit, who is just the most adorable and funny character that I've ever read as a side character. And then she died, okay? She sacrificed herself, and that nearly made me cry. Like, honestly, I was at work when I read that and I nearly had tears in my eyes, because Bryce brought her freedom, and then her first act as a free slave was to bloody give her the time to kill Micah. And I was so sad because she's sitting there just doing the like, I am not afraid, my grandmother was in the war 100 years ago and I will not be afraid. And I was like, like, why? Like, I did not expect this heartbreak straight away, but she was just the best person, and obviously I should have expected it. She deserved better. And then we had Micah's confession, which I was just like, god damn, like, there was a lot of reveals there, but it's also like the villain thing where it's like, ooh, let me do a speech about all the things that I did, and then you'll kill me because you have enough time to think of a plan, which is always such a dumb plot, but I guess we didn't need to know that information. And then, man, when Hunt killed Sandriel, that was such a boss move. When he literally ripped her fucking head off, I was like, holy shit, like, he just pulled the whole thing off and she dead, because he finally had his powers unlocked and he became freed at the end of it. Like, I'm so glad for Hunt that he is safe now because he is just my favorite. But honestly, that was such a power move. Who else totally saw it coming that that Med Witch was gonna be the new Witch Queen? Like, she never mentioned her name and she was very vague about a lot of stuff, and this bitch just turned up somewhere, and I'm like, of course you're gonna be that stupid witch that is meant to marry Rune, and then Rune is in love with you, and I'm just like, yes, give me this couple. And honestly, just ruined fucking Danon. I don't even have to say much about him, but I loved him. He was just such a rebel against his stupid ass father, and he is Bryce's older brother. Their relationship just being a downfall 9 years ago, and then it's only because Bryce was trying to hide her powers from him, and she didn't want to ruin his chosen one powers. And it was just amazing. I just love her relationship. I could talk about it way more, but I do know that I have been filming for a long time, so I'm trying to get through my points quickly now. The purple unicorn scene, that was just hilarious. And for the fact that Hunter thought it was a vibrator at first, I died. It was hilarious. And just for the fact that she's showing him and she's like, look at how many unicorns. I'm like, what the hell? Like, unexpected moment. And also the picture taking, how at first Hunter had just a heap of pictures on his phones of like murder victims, but then after a while he started to take photos of other things a lot, and she would always take photos of him. And the scene in the jail cell where he had them on the loop because he was getting tortured by them, and just how we could see the way that she was so standoffish, and then by the end of it she was so in love with him, like, oh, kill me. Another one is Ember's smackdown of the Autumn Queen in the summit room, where she's like, bitch, you didn't know shit, you asshole. And then he's just like, oh, okay, bitch, because for some reason he somehow loved the mum even though he was such a tool. That was just a boss moment of Bryce's mum being awesome. And then when Bryce bloody burnt Micah and then just got the vacuum out and vacuumed up his ashes, like, what a power move. Like, honestly, what a move in the modern world to actually just vacuum up the killer of the main story. It was just so great. And then just the whole summit room thing where Hunt was there and they could see her on the video feeds, and like when she's running around and killing people and everyone is just losing their shit. But I'm also like, why are all these people just chilling in this room? You need to get back to Crescent City and save the shit. Like, it was happening and I'm sitting there like, oh my god. But for the fact that they could see it all going down and they're all like, oh my god, Bryce is amazing, oh my god, it was just powerful. That was a lot of talking, and I'm not even mad. I was so excited to film this. Like, I wrote my notes a couple of days ago and then I had to wait for one of my days off to finally film it, but I got to talk about my feelings. And like, I do love filming book reviews, and at this point I'm trying to just film them when I get really excited about the content that I want to talk about, and just I loved it so much. And I just hope there's other people out there who loved this as much as I did, because I just had so much fun, and I am excited for the next book. Don't know where it's gonna go, but I just really enjoyed this book. Anyway guys, thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed my thoughts and feelings on House of Blood and Earth. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!